Hey, happy spring, everybody. This is our fourth Ostomy Academy, and we are sponsored by 11 Health and the United Ostomy Association of America. And this topic tonight is going to be fun and interesting for everybody. It's called Leaks, Tweaks, and Peaks. And I'm Brenda Elseger. I'm the United Ostomy Association Director of all the affiliated support groups across the country. And we have individual memberships as well. So if you're not part of us, please feel free to join, register, and you can get these emails sent to you right away about when the next Ostomy Academy is coming up. So tonight we're talking tweaks, leaks, and peaks. And that means that we're talking about things that we need to tweak up because we might have had an accident or something isn't quite working right. Leaks, we all know what that can be about. And peaks, something new that someone's using or something old that someone's using that they really like. With all of our speakers tonight, you'll be getting just a taste from their daily lives and what's happening. So I'll start with one of mine. I remember being at a party and this is shortly after I got my ostomy and I went out in public and I had a one-piece open pouch and I was in the bathroom emptying my pouch, and at that time we used clips, these old clips. And the clip actually broke. It separated and broke, and it wouldn't work right. I couldn't get the dang pouch to tighten up again. So I remember yelling through the door for my girlfriend, Corrine, come here. She came to the door, and I said, I need some duct tape. And so the host was having a dinner party, and she went out to the host and said, can you get some duct tape? Brenda needs some duct tape in the bathroom. So, I mean, it was hilarious for everybody. They're trying to wonder what I'm doing with duct tape, but it works. So if we can't use a clip, we can use a paper clip. We can use a magnetic clip of some sort. We can use duct tape. So that's your first tweak of the night. But they're going to get way better than that one. So I wanted to tell you just a little bit about myself. I haven't had an ostomy for 26 years, a colostomy due to colorectal cancer, and I've been managing just fine. I have been irrigating most of my time there, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. We have some great speakers tonight, and we also have a special surprise. We have Joy Hooper, who's going to be talking with us, and Josh Nelson, who's going to be talking with us, and Megan is going to give us her mental health moment at the end. But the special surprise is this is my last time hosting, and I'm bringing on a co-host, Steve Van Devender, and he's going to be being your MC going forward for the next year or so. And Steve Van Devender is new to us at the United Ostomy Association. He's the newest director that we have. So glad to have you. Let me just tell you a little bit about Steve, and I'll give him a chance to talk. He had surgery you won't believe this, on his 43rd birthday. It really wasn't what he had planned for that day. However, it saved his life and allowed him to become involved with the UAA as a support group leader for the last 20 years, along with numerous other organizations with his many, many roles that he played. He's now thrilled to be on the board of directors after retiring for an active 40-year career in medical sales at the end of 2022. So he's fresh into retirement and jumps right into the United Ostomy Association. Welcome, Steve. Tell everybody about you just a little bit.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Brenda. Actually, I've been to every one of these so far, but I've been on the other side. So this will be my first time of being in front of the camera. I agreed to work with Brenda a year ago when I did retire, and it's just kind of escalated from there to the different things that I have been able to be involved. But one of the things that's kind of unique about me is that I spent 20 years in orthopedics, so I went into surgery with orthopedic surgeons. So I was actually in the operating room, and then from there I went to wound care, and I've actually seen 3 colectomies done. And so it's really pretty cool to see peristalsis and see the action of the gastrointestinal system. So I do bring kind of a different perspective as both a patient as well as a medical person, even though I don't have any letters behind my name. So I'm excited to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit later of some of the things that I like, but we've got some great speakers, and I think it's time to get to it.
It is. And I just want to say that we're not endorsing any particular product or any brand. We're just happen to say what is our particular favorites that we need every day. And some of the things I use, I can use across the different manufacturers. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Also to remember that if you want to ask a question of the speaker, please write it into the chat line so that Steve can ask the speaker to answer the questions at the end of his time. So all the questions that we can, we'll answer at the end of the speaker's time. So bringing on our first speaker tonight is Josh Nelson. And I'll tell you, at the age of 37, Joshua was diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, in November of 2017. Within 1 year, he was evaluated with inflammatory bowel disease from the experts at Rochester Mayo Clinic and the University of Minnesota Medical Center due to his deteriorating condition. Now, I knew him before a lot of other people, but he's become kind of famous. He's had articles done about him too. And he is, thank God, he has taken over my position in the Minneapolis Ostomy Support Group as the membership director and treasurer. So that allows me to be the volunteer director for the United Ostomy Association. But poor Josh, he went through heck. He was elevated to biologics and combination therapies in an effort to manage his UC. But after failing maximum medical therapies, it was determined to surgically remove his colon in November 2018 at the age of 38. In February 2019, the final surgery was completed, making his ileostomy permanent. Since the decision to remove his colon, his health has returned. It requires zero medication, no specialized diet, and no further complications from ulcerative colitis. On a side note, which is a big one, he is the first documented case of continued flight status as an Air Force pilot. He is a member of the United Ostomy Association of America and the Ostomy Association of the Minneapolis area and Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. He participated in the 2019 Ostomy Awareness Day, the 5K, and hosted by Coloplast, and has participated in Coloplast sponsored events. Joshua resides in Otsego, Minnesota, with his wife Natalie and their two daughters, Brinley and Brenna. And I want you to welcome Josh, and he has so many interesting stories. I can't wait for you to hear some of them. And if you have any questions at all, please write them in the chat and we will ask him at the end. Josh, good to see you, and thank you so much. Look at your uniform. You look so beautiful. Handsome, I should say, right? Take it away, Josh.
Figured I would act the part a little bit. Yeah, Brenda, 11 Health, UOAA, thank you so much for inviting me to this great event, raising awareness with inflammatory bowel disease. Actually, yesterday, I was doing a Crohn's Colitis Foundation event with Topgolf up in Brooklyn Center in Minnesota, so that was a lot of fun too. Hitting some golf balls, trying to raise some awareness for inflammatory bowel disease and the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. So excellent introduction. Honestly, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A little bit about me, like Brenda has already mentioned. I've been a C-130 instructor pilot for I've served over 22 years. I have 5 combat deployments under my belt. I have countless hours overseas. This has been the love of my life, being an Air Force pilot. Like I mentioned in a video I did earlier, there's no greater responsibility whatsoever to be given the keys of the C-130 to go and execute your mission worldwide at a moment's notice, no matter where, no matter what. So just want to touch base on kind of my transition of having the disease and kind of getting to where I'm at now, 3+ years of being a permanent ileostomat and kind of how I got there. So long story short, Brenda touched on it, diagnosed in 2017 with no family background, no family history of this whatsoever. Was fortunate enough to be evaluated by the Mayo Clinic and the University of Minnesota, like Brenda had mentioned. Medications did not work for me. I'm generally around 190 pounds. I was down to about 140 pounds on countless medications, your prednisones, your azathioprine, your Remicade, your Humira. I'm pretty sure I touched them all. And I remember before the decision was made to have the surgery, my surgeon, who I actually still communicate with monthly, pretty much told me that you're going to feel better once I take that source of inflammation out. And this is just me. This is just my own individual experience. I am not a subject matter expert in this whatsoever. This is just what I went through. Once the surgeries were completed, I talk about my lifestyle immediately after the surgery. For anybody who has ever gone through having a part of your colon removed or a major abdominal surgery, they obviously teach you the tuck and roll method to get out of bed. But after my first surgery, the physical therapist comes into the room, and keep in mind, I'm 140 pounds, heavily medicated, completely ill, and extremely weak. And she says, the goal of the day today is just to get up and walk 15 steps. in my entire life, I've gone through some fairly difficult training, some pretty demanding training. I found out I fit in about a 55-gallon drum in a small box going through survival schools. And I was like, this is no problem. I can get up about 15 steps any day of the week. But I'm day one post-op after my first surgery. So I tuck and roll myself out of bed. I start walking. I've got everything hooked up to me. I didn't even make it 8 steps before I just about blacked out and fell over. And that was my lifestyle immediately after surgery. 18 plus bowel movements a day, medications not working. Like I said, and I was even afraid to eat because I was afraid of the pain that it was going to cause. So at that time when that happened was more or less a wake-up call for myself that, you know what, this isn't it. This is not the lifestyle that I want to live, that I want to participate with. I'm married. I have 2 girls at home. When I was sick, I had no quality of life. I still remember that I knew where every bathroom, gas station, rest stop was on my 40-mile journey from my house to work, just in case the urge came about that I had to go. And for those of us who have had Crohn's, ulcerative colitis in a very active state, if that sudden urge hits, you can squeeze. It's not enough. There were times I wore adult diapers traveling from my house to work just to ensure that I made it there. And it's the silent killer because nobody talks about this. I was a 37-year-old male that pretty much lost functionality of my own bowels. So the quality of life I had was none. I was a prisoner in my own home. So when I hit that rock bottom state immediately after surgery, not even being able to walk 8 steps from my bed to even the door to the post-op room that I was in, was sort of my mind shift that I had that occurred to me at the time was, no matter what, I'm not going to allow myself to get that weak, that ill again. And I need to proactively participate in my own life to ensure that I have a better future moving forward so that I can be there for my daughters. I can be there for my wife. And on top of that, maybe even set an example for my 2 girls growing when they grow up, is that our dad overcame something fairly significant. And at the end of the day, he did not give up. No matter what, he never quit. He kept moving one foot in front of the other and kept his head down moving forward. So that was the mind shift that I had. And I thought at that moment that no matter what, this ileostomy, at the time, surgery number 1, not even the second surgery yet, this was the first one where my rectum is still in place, that this was not going to define me. Just because I have an ileostomy was not going to dictate what I wanted to do with my life. Yes, I am an Air Force pilot, but at that time, I could care less if I saw the airplane again, because it dawned on me what was most important was the health for me and to be there for my family. That was number 1, was how do I get my life back? How do I improve my quality of life so that I can ensure that I can be around? So that's what hit me, was the reason why I became a permanent ileostomat was, shortly after the first surgery, when I had like one of those post-op appointments, was discussing whether or not I wanted an internal pouching system or if I wanted to continue on and have my rectum removed. The medical facility told me that the disease that I had, of how active it was, could still attack my rectum. And that's all I needed to hear. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with the disease anymore because it absolutely destroyed me. It was probably by far one of the most difficult things physically and mentally that I have gone through. And I'm fortunate to say now, at the end of it, it's like, it's beyond me. It's hard for me to even consider what my life was like at that time, because I've decided, number 1, that I accepted the fact that I'm going to have an ileostomy for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. And I just want to focus on moving forward. So shortly after the surgeries, the one thing that the physical therapist always told me, and it kind of dawned on me too, was no matter what, if I'm moving my body is healing. And that means moving my blood. They emphasize that I need to walk, I need to move the body. So I was fortunate enough that a neighbor of ours actually had a treadmill in their basement. And so the thing that we always remember when it comes to making goals, that anytime you have a major surgery like this, is that it is a marathon. It is truly not a sprint. You need to start out with small goals that you can focus on to achieve in one day. The one thing that I gravitated to a little bit was trying to find people who have done different difficult things. Whether or not people searched YouTube or gravitated to podcasts or anything on there, but since I'm a little bit of a military member, sometimes the special forces concept interests me a little bit because I've carried them around a couple of times. So I kind of focused on what Navy SEALs go through. And I really enjoyed what they talked about is, if you don't understand what a Navy SEAL is, they're kind of like that tier 1 special operator that go do a lot of things that we're not really aware of, but they go through some fairly demanding training. And the one thing they always talk about is don't focus on graduation. It's a 6-month school. Focus on making it to breakfast. Wake up on time, make it to breakfast. Train hard, make it to lunch. So it's establishing those small little goals that you can meet and achieve in an effort to get you towards those long-term goals. So going back to the treadmill story was, I would start out just in their basement walking for 5 minutes. And I could not believe at the time just how exhausted I would be after just walking a simple 5 minutes. And this is not an incline. This is nothing. Just as me just trying to move my body. But that 5 minutes in 1 week turned into 10 minutes, which turned into 15 minutes, which turned into 20 minutes, and so on. And before I know it, a couple weeks later, I'm watching an entire movie just walking, and my blood is flowing and my body is healing. Obviously, anytime you have a major abdominal surgery, they're going to give you restrictions of what you can do with your core. I followed those to the T. I did not do anything. I did not lift anything. My main focus was a major surgery just took place. I need to allow my body to heal. And the second part of that was focusing on the nutrition piece of that, of what foods am I eating? Yes, I understand that I have an ileostomy and everything is starting to come back online a little bit. I need to test foods out and see how my body reacts. I need to try appliances or products and see how my body responds to that. The first couple of weeks to couple of months is nothing but a trial and error program of trying to find out what truly does work best for you. Did I have leaks in those first couple of weeks? Yes, I did. I was actually released from the hospital about a week before Thanksgiving in November of 2018. So everybody enjoys Thanksgiving because there's excellent food out there. And I actually remember the medical staff telling me that you've been sick for so long. Please make sure you are doing your best to slowly incorporate foods in your body and don't overdo it. So I kind of thought about that for a second. So my first Thanksgiving was nothing but mashed potatoes, just so it's something that I can easily digest and let it transit through my body. Well, shortly after that, I did overeat a little bit, and I had my first leak. The one thing for me being an aviator and an Air Force pilot that we do really well in the aviation community is anytime we go out and train and do anything, one of the most important aspects that we capture is what we call the debrief, is we will simply reconstruct every single piece of that sortie that we just flew, whether it's 1 hour, 2.5 hours, 4 hours, and go through it incrementally and go, did we make any mistakes? What did we do good? What did we do bad? Oh, yeah, that's a nice picture. And that is actually one of our airplanes right there. We are the Flying Vikings, no pun to the Minnesota Vikings, but that's us. We were here before them. And so we take the debrief very seriously. That is where we learn. That is where the most learning takes place. So anytime I had a leak, which I did have two, and one of them was in the middle of the night destroying our bed. My wife woke up because she smelled it. I was passed out because I was still on the at-home pain regiment, and she woke me up. And so I did not get irritated or I did not get emotional. I just took a step back and said, what can I learn from this? I needed to understand that, okay, maybe I need to make sure I empty my appliance, or I need to stop eating before a certain time, because again, my body is adapting and I'm learning how to incorporate this ileostomy that I'm hoping to have later on. The second surgery was done in February of 2019, which made my ileostomy permanent. And I honestly felt like I had to start on over again because I was actually doing fairly well recovering and adapting to my life with an ileostomy. Second surgery took place, same duration. They removed the rectum, they sewed the anus up, and I'm honestly starting back at ground zero again of slowly starting to recover my body. I focused on the health. I focused on the nutrition piece of it to make sure that anytime I am moving, I am exercising and allowing blood to flow through my body to heal my body. But anything that I am eating, I am making sure it is packed with the nutrition that my body needs to heal and recover. I am someone that you will not find pounding a 12-pack of Mountain Dew a day. You will not find me at a fast food restaurant, but those are just choices that I made once I went through this transition. And fortunately enough for me, my family adopted that same mentality. I don't dwell so much on the fact of why or how I came down with this autoimmune condition of ulcerative colitis. I just want to focus on how my life can move forward and how I can be the best person that I am moving forward from each day. A couple of quotes that I love to live by is, I'm fairly certain that 10 out of 10 of us will die at some point. So don't dwell on what you're going through right now. It's always focus on how can I be a better person? Because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure 10 out of 10 of us will end our lives at some point. And number two, proactively participate in your own life. Meet those small goals of waking up on time, accomplishing one simple objective, because it does not matter how difficult a day or how bad of a day that you had. You're not having a bad life. You might have just had a bad day. But guess what? Tomorrow is a new day and you can keep moving forward. And then again, me just accepting the fact that I was going to have this ileostomy for the rest of my life. So that was part of my mindset change moving forward. Once the surgeries were accomplished, was I wanted my quality of life back, because absolutely I did not have one. I did live a fairly decent lifestyle, I think, before I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I don't think I really did anything that no one else has really done living their life. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell on the fact of the how or the why ulcerative colitis fell upon me. I just wanted to focus on my life moving forward and how can I not allow my ileostomy to dictate how I was going to live my life. So once the second surgery was done and my ileostomy became permanent, I slowly reached out for help as well. Like Brenda mentioned, I'm a member of the Minneapolis Ostomy group. I reached out to them just to seek guidance and techniques and how other people have lived their lives with an ileostomy. At this point, I am still grounded. I am not flying the airplane at all, because we need to go through the paperwork process to hopefully show that I can do this later on. But that was not my main concern. I wanted to focus on my life, my health moving forward, and slowly meeting those ways to get back there. One of the things I did fall upon when I was in the healing process was a lot of YouTube videos. I did what everybody does. You know, you search on YouTube and go, what's life like with an ileostomy? How can I live my life with an ileostomy? And I appreciate every single person that actually put their life out there. But honestly, I think there's only a couple of people that really show a positive effect that are really widely known. A lot of the videos I came across were difficulties, which I truly do understand. Some people do have difficulties, but it's not everybody. If you're somebody who's new getting into, having an ileostomy or going through this disease, I tried to shift my focus of just kind of searching Crohn's Colitis Foundation, UOAA, to try to find that positive outlook, to know that, hey, you know what, there is hope after this. The mindset change continuing is, again, now I'm focusing on trying to improve everything, because the end goal that I did have was not only to get my health back, was to potentially try to get my job back as an Air Force pilot, because ulcerative colitis is a disqualifying condition in the Air Force, because I have to be ready at a moment's notice to really go anywhere. And if I can't do that, I may no longer be able to continue to serve. But if my life and my quality of life is back, I'd be okay with that. What I went through may not fit for every single person. Everybody's a little bit different. And, this is just what I dealt with. One guy I came across, and again, this is no consultation, no nothing, was a guy named Nick Bear. I found him on YouTube because, again, I'm trying to find people to kind of surround myself with positive attitudes and try to keep myself moving forward. And he really focused on, how to live an active lifestyle. What type of athlete in theory do you want to be? And he lives by kind of the go one more mentality. It's like, no matter what, always try to go one more. So every time I would try to do a simple workout, whether it was a run, once I was cleared to progress, to start lifting weights and be more active, the one thing to always remember is when you get to that phase is that take it slow. It's like you might have lived a lifestyle where you were fairly active before the disease or before you got sick, but your body went through a lot. Take it slow. So I started out extremely small, and your body is a great source of information. it will give you immediate feedback if for some odd reason it does not like what you are doing. So for example, if you're exercising, you start to feel tenderness and pain, slow down a little bit, give it a couple more days and try again. Your body might not be there yet. Again, maybe start out with 5 pounds before you roll to 10 pounds, or walk for 5 minutes before you get to 10 minutes. Take that time to slowly acclimate your body to what it just went through. And that's truly what I tried to focus on. Anytime I tried to get into a gym to try to make my life a little bit better, was I tried to show up with a plan. There's a lot of apps out there that kind of give you any type of workout scenario or any type of life coaching per se, to give you a plan when you walk into a fitness facility and go, what do I do today? I'm actually quite active in the gym locations. I have an Anytime Fitness membership. And the great thing about that is anytime I travel, there's usually one around and you'll probably find me in there. But the great thing about that is it's readily accessible to you. But if you have a plan going in there, you're better off accomplishing something, whether it's a 5-minute walk, a 10-minute walk, or a little bit of an exercise. I think there's some videos of here of me doing some of those exercises to include the core. I think some of the stuff you see me doing in here is more or less like a leg day type stuff. But that was me a week ago. I mean, doing core crunches and, hanging leg raises. I have no issue with that whatsoever. And the one thing I want people to understand too, is you can probably barely tell that I have a Stealth Belt hybrid belt on, or a 2-piece ileostomy appliance by Coloplast. And there's a plank right there. But that was me 2.5 to 3 years after having my ileostomy. And so it didn't happen overnight. That took time. One thing going back to the nutrition piece is I tried to find certain supplements that could help to provide the nutrition that I needed versus a hard pill. So a lot of the stuff that I take is in the veggie cap, and I make a shake out of it. And that way I can absorb that nutrition that my body needs, after I do exercise, whether or not I'm in the gym or I go for a run. I did watch one 11 Health episode, and I think it was Colin who touched on this a little bit when he was talking about hydration. Hydration and nutrition, I think, go hand in hand. It is something that needs to be done over long periods. And so as long as you are focused on, having those foods that keep you healthy and give you the nutrition that your body does need, same thing with the hydration, those are good things to try to understand how my body reacts to all of that stuff. Yep, there you go. I feel that one on the legs every single time. But yeah, if you look at that one, for example, can anyone even tell that I have a Stealth Belt on? And I guarantee you that most of those people that I'm in the gym with don't even know I have an ileostomy. So that was sort of my mind shift that I went through in my effort to try to get myself back to improving my quality of life. So once I slowly started to get healthier, for me, when I was at work, granted, I was grounded. I could not fly the airplane at all, but I still had my full-time job. I just could not fly the airplane. We call that DNF, duties not to include flying. So the discussion came with the military medical flight doctors of, what do we do with you? What is your long-term goal? And I said, I would like to try to get back into the airplane. And so they did their job, they did their due diligence, and they tried to do the research in there of, people returning to flight status with an ileostomy. And they didn't really find much. Some of the verbiage that we came across was, an ileostomy is not compatible with military aviation. For me and my job, I run on semantics and I run on definitions as in operating the C-130. So I'm like, what does that really mean? What does not compatible with military aviation mean? Nobody could really tell me. So we started to dig even more. Some of the verbiage that we came across was, what if you operate in blacked out conditions? Well, I have rules and regulations that I need to follow. And actually in our C-130 handbook says that we cannot operate in blacked out conditions. And I think what they were talking about was inside the airplane. So there's always lights on inside the airplane, whether they're NVG, night vision goggle compatible in the flight deck and the cargo compartment. So there always needs to be a bit of light because it's a safety consideration. I don't need people walking around hurting themselves because they're running into things when the airplane's in flight. So that was one thing we were able to refute. Another concern was, well, what if I need to egress the aircraft with a parachute? Yes, I don't operate an ejection seat. I'm not a fighter pilot where I pull the handle grips and I'm ejecting out of the seat and falling to the ground. kind of looks like that. And so our egress mechanism is if I cannot put it down on a road or a flat piece of land, we do have parachutes in the airplane that I actually need to jump out of the airplane, pull the cord, look 1,000, pull 1,000, look around 1,000, all that training, and I'm in a harness. So we actually went to a harness that was actually at where I work, and I had the medical people there, and I unzipped my flight suit like so, and I was in the harness, and they're in there taking pictures just to make sure that whatever appliance I was wearing did not interfere with the harness for the parachute if I needed to egress the airplane. So that was another thing we overcame. Another one was they thought I was a fighter pilot. So they thought that I flew an F-16, an F-15, where you're pulling 8-9 Gs, and I wear this suit around my abdomen and my legs, because when you pull that G on that airplane, it's kind of like 7 to 9 times your body weight pushed down on your face. If you're a little bit older, it takes a lot of the wrinkles out and you look young again, but it's actually quite painful. And I can understand that if I was a fighter pilot and I had that piece around my abdomen and that piece inflated, it might cause an issue with my ileostomy or colostomy if I had one of those, because that pressure is putting on there and I might have a leak or an explosion or anything like that. Well, we refuted that because my airplane, as you can see right there, cannot pull over 3 Gs, because if I pull 3 Gs, bad things do happen. And I don't even wear what's called a G suit that helps you with those envelopes of aviation. So lo and behold, with a lot of work and the support of my surgeon and a lot of his work, I was actually allowed to continue service as of November of 2019. So pretty much exactly 2 years after I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And since then, I have honestly pushed the envelope, operating the C-130, living my life to the fullest, because I was not afraid to test what I was able to do, living my life with an ileostomy. I know a lot of people always have questions about air travel and what have you. We can touch on that later. But I can honestly tell you that I've actually taken my airplane unpressurized all the way up to 25,000 feet to allow some secret dudes to jump out of the back of the airplane doing personnel airdrop. And the one story that I will relate to that is, you think of a small bag of Doritos on the ground. So as I go up in altitude, unpressurized, that air will expand. So by the time we got to 25,000 feet, that small bag of Doritos was about ready to launch a bunch of Chinese stars at us, because that bag was about to explode because that air had expanded so much. When I saw that, I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is my ileostomy doing right now? And I remember my hand going on down and touching it, and I was like, it was completely flat, which gave me a boost of confidence that there's really not a whole lot that I cannot do in the C-130 and my life, because I am continually testing those capabilities. And one of the reasons why I did not have any inflation in my bag at that time, because I do simple things. So before I hop in the airplane, I just make sure I empty the contents of my bag, because if there's nothing in the bag, there's nothing for the air to expand when I'm sitting in the seat and flying the airplane. Other things that I try to focus on, like when you saw the wake surfing videos and jumping in the water, the one thing I do remember, and I'll kind of show you an example. So I am a Coloplast Sensura Mio 2-piece wearer. And one technique that I generally always use is, I do have a flat stomach, but the area of concern for me is that dang belly button. Is if I was, pushing this into the belly button, and as I'm working out, do whatever it is I need to do, if sweat builds in there or water gets in there, it likes to wormhole itself around in there and start to erode the capability of my wafer. So one day I'm just sitting there looking at this, and I'm like, well, what if I just cut that piece out? Because anytime when I would try to stick it into the belly button, it would just kind of, start to erode around there. Then these little flaps would start failing, what have you. And I would have to change the bag 2 to 3 times a week. So really all I do is I just make a half moon cutout, wrong way, a half moon cutout around where my belly button is at. So I actually get solid contact on this wafer to my skin. And since I discovered that, I have never had an issue with how active I am, whether I'm in the airplane, whether I'm in the water, and worry about that this wafer is going to fail and fall off on me in some way, shape, or form. It's never happened. The only things that I do I watch out for, especially in the summertime when it's hot and humid, is yeah, if my body sweats, I might erode through this wafer a little bit faster. So I might be changing it 2 to 3 times a week. But in the wintertime, when it's a little bit drier and not as humid, I can pretty much last a week. And the reason why I use a week is because I am a male and I do have body hair on my stomach. And the longer that this wafer stays on, the more painful it is to take it off, even with a wipe, because of them darn hairs. So that's just a simple technique that I use. I honestly just use 4 products. I just use the barrier seal, this wafer, my bag. And the one thing I like about the 2-piece bag, especially with that hybrid belt, is I can rotate it in and out. I can rotate it vertically and I can rotate it horizontally. So whether or not I'm using the Stealth Belt Pro or the Stealth Belt Hybrid, I can rotate that thing left and right, and it's never been an issue. The last thing I really want to touch base on for all of those who are going through this is no matter what, at the end of the day, life is too dang precious. At the end of the day, you need to proactively participate in your own life, and you need to keep in mind what you can do to keep your life moving forward, whether or not you need to change your diet slightly, whether or not you need to learn from the leaks that you might be having. Keep your head down, keep moving forward. And at the end of the day, no matter what, never quit. And that's just something that I live by because, like I said, life is too precious, it's too short. And I want to enjoy the time that I have here. Honestly, having my ileostomy and going through the surgeries saved my life. Like Brenda said, I'm someone who does not rely on any medication whatsoever. I don't have any special diet. I don't eat corn because we all know what corn does. Even if I try to eat it, it comes out looking the same way, just like I was when I was normal. But with that being said, I still enjoy sweets and I still enjoy treats. My wife still goes to Costco, buys oatmeal cream pies. And I'm trying to figure out why I've got 4 of them stuck in my mouth at one point and going, why are you buying these things? And the last little thing that I always try to do is I always try to prepare. So here's just a little thing that I'll carry with me in the airplane. It opens up. It's got a bunch of pockets that I just prepare. I have a couple extra supplies in here. So in the fact that something does happen, I've got something I can patch myself up with until I get home and I can swap the thing out. So hopefully that helped. Thank you again to UIA, Brenda, 11 Health for having me here. It's truly been an honor. And so I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hold on. There might be some questions there. Steve, do you have any questions?
Actually, there's been several, but the first thing I really want to say, Josh, is there have been numerous comments thanking you for your service. So we have some veterans that obviously are ostomates as well, but there has been numerous contacts about your service. First question that I found interesting was, with everything you've been through, what helped you with your mental health to get through all that?
I don't do well with failure. In my entire career, failure is not a good thing, but failure is an extremely important teaching tool. I have failed at certain things going through all the training I've been through. I failed at things that growing up. Did I get frustrated with myself? Well, sure, who doesn't? But at the same point, I took a step back and I said, what can I learn from this? We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And that's one thing that I truly try to stress on people is that you're going to make mistakes going through this transition and living a life with an ileostomy. Don't get emotional. Don't get frustrated. Just take a step back and go, what can I learn from this? Because again, at the end of the day, tomorrow's a new day, and you can always move forward.
Good answer.
Very much so. So the other question, I asked you this the other day, but it's also come up a couple times. You talked about your bag not filling up with air/gas.
Yep.
I have been, I've had mine for 25 years, so I've flown many times. It seems like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I always empty mine before I get on the plane. That's always part of the process. Is it more what I've eaten beforehand that maybe is the gas situation? Or you mentioned you've taken it up 25,000 feet with not pressurized. Mm-hmm. What about, commercially, they go up to 30, 35,000 sometimes. So Is it the higher you go, does that have something to do with it?
Actually, it does not. So if you think of commercial airlines, in layman's term, to keep it short and sweet, the way pressurization works in an airplane is air coming in and an outflow valve on the back of the airplane for air going out. So there's more air coming in, less air going out. So generally, airlines, yes, you're right, they operate in the 30s of thousands of feet, but they generally have the pressure altitude in the cabin somewhere around 0 to 6,000 feet. So if you have any contents or any air in that bag while you transition from, let's say, Key West, Florida, that might be sea level versus Denver, Colorado, that's about a mile in the air, you might get a little expansion of that air that's already in your bag. So the one thing that I focus on anytime I'm scheduled to fly or I'm TDY, temporary duty, flying a mission, is I focus on a lot of rices, oatmeals, things that will slow my system down. And I'm not afraid to meal prep beforehand a little bit just to make sure I'm kind of eating that style of food that will slow my system down. I know what my body will do if I have that. And then at the end of the day, I would highly recommend to empty the contents of your bag before you get in the airplane. And also, everybody on that airplane commercially is using that bathroom. So whether or not they're urinating, whether or not they're taking a poop, it happens day in and day out. I have a lot of coworkers that are airline pilots, and it happens every single day. So don't ever be embarrassed or afraid to use an airline bathroom if you need to empty the contents of your bag. Some simple things, a little poo-pourri spray. If anyone's been on an airplane and someone comes out after destroying a bathroom, the flight attendants are like, they're spraying it down. But that happens when you're at a restaurant too, and you walk into the bathroom like, wow, what's going on in here? So don't ever be afraid to use a bathroom in the airplane because everybody uses it.
I couldn't agree with you more. However, emptying your pouch on an airplane is quite a challenge. I'm not as fit as you are, so I can't sit on the toilet normally and be able to have enough room to work. So I kind of more stand up or squat down.
Yep.
And the bouncing around in the plane makes it difficult.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't control the airplane.
So I understand, but I have to kind of balance. Do I really need to empty my pouch, or can I wait another hour until I can get on the ground and stuff?
Yep, that's true. And when you're at altitude and you're coming on down, you're not getting that expansion and pressure. Generally, it'll almost vacuum on you because that pressure is going away. But yeah, you're right, Steve. You have to kind of weigh the benefits of, do I want a potential leak or an issue with my bag, or do I try to find a way to get rid of the output that I do have in there to ensure safety upon landing. Yeah, you're right. So airline bathrooms are not.
Do you use a filtered bag with a vent or do not? I do. I'm a big believer in filtered bags. So
I do too. I'm a Sensor Mio 2-piece click guy. It's not broken. There's no reason for me to change what I've used. The wheel's not broken. Why fix it?
That's great. And thank you so much for that great talk, Josh. That was wonderful. We have to move on, but can you hang out just in case people have some more questions? Super. And now Steve and I will just talk about a few tweaks that we do for our leaks, and then maybe some peaks. Steve, do you want to start?
Sure. We all know hydration is something that we really need to be worried about, or staying hydrated. I recently had a bout with whatever you want to call it, flu, gastritis, or whatever, and it put me in the hospital. And I have known about this for 25 years. I've always tried to be very, very careful about that. But this hit me so hard and so fast that I couldn't straighten my fingers out. I was cramping so bad. My jaw was cramping.
Wow.
I have a very difficult. I had my wife drop me off right at the door of the emergency room because I wasn't sure I could walk in all the way. Four bags of normal saline later, I was okay. But one of the things that I learned about at the UOA conference in Philadelphia a few years ago from a Dr. Richard Rood, who was a gastroenterologist at Washington University, something that he recommends is a product called Drip Drop. And I hope that you can kind of see that. It reminds me of Kool-Aid. It comes in little packets like this that you indeed put in water. According to them, it says it has 3 times the electrolytes and only half the amount of sugar than the sports drinks. Everybody knows about Gatorade and Powerade and some of those kind of things. So Drip Drop is a product that's out there that we can buy at Walgreens, pretty much any pharmacy. When I was feeling so bad, my wife went to Walgreens and they couldn't find it. And it turns out it's in the pediatric section with the Pedialyte and some of those types of products. So Drip Drop is better than just water and is relatively available at most any pharmacy. One of the other things that I'm a firm believer in, and my WOCN nurse 25 years ago, Bev Griffin at OSF St. Francis, put me in an ostomy support belt, meaning this is just the belt. And you notice it has, hopefully you all have seen this, but you see how it has the little tabs. I'm just she put me in that because I was 43 years old. I was very active. I was going into surgery with orthopedic surgeons. I certainly didn't want to leak when I was in the operating room. I was still big golfer, and I still am. I've been wearing a belt for 43 years. If you use a convex appliance, when I was a ostomy sales rep, I used to tell everybody, if you're using convexity, you should be wearing a belt. If you need depth in order to get down to your stoma, having that belt is a very, very good thing. Now, you have to be careful with it, however. I know you've all heard of bed sores, or of pressure ulcers. If you tighten this belt down too tight, the little prongs where it fits into can create too much pressure and in essence develop a pressure ulcer. So we've got to walk a very, very fine line as to, yes, we want some tension, but we don't want making it so tight that is indeed going to, cause us a problem. So I'm a big believer in belts. All the manufacturers make them, so they're all relatively the same. But I'm a big believer in belts, especially for people that are very active. I didn't ask Josh if he wears a belt. I saw he wears the Coloplast, which has the two prongs, which maybe for him when doing his exercises is a good thing. I wear the single and half for years and that kind of thing. So I'm a big proponent of belts. The other thing, there's that old saying, less is more. But there's one thing that I do use and have for quite some time now with the advent of silicone skin barriers. I'm a big believer in silicone. The alcohol, all of the stuff that's been around for years and years, stings and burns if you have any kind of skin irritation. So I'm a big believer in the silicone brands. I work for Comatech, so I have Comatech products here that I show. This happens to be SensiCare. They've since changed the name to Astera, I think it is. I'm not Astrada, something like that. Anyway, they come in a wipe. They also come in a spray, and they also come in what I call the lollipops, which give you plenty of material and that basically helps protect the skin. One of the questions that's come up on the chat was a lady is having a very difficult time with allergies and saying she's having a very difficult time finding a skin barrier that indeed that her skin doesn't react to. I can't wear Hollister. I know we're not supposed to talk about names, but I'm just telling you, I myself can't wear Hollister because my skin reacts to it. So when I was a sales rep, I used to use silicone skin barriers to help create a barrier to be able to help in that situation. So I'm a big believer in this when you need it. I get asked the question all the time, does everybody absolutely need this? And the answer to that question is no. But if you are a chronic leaker, where you're having leaks quite commonly, anything that you can do to protect the skin so that you don't get skin breakdown. Unfortunately, that was one of the things I saw the most as a ostomy sales rep, was skin that was so red and irritated that we couldn't keep an appliance on. So those are three things that I use. And I would encourage you, if you have any of those types of situations, to give it a try.
Great. Thank you so much. And I mentioned that I was an irrigator. So only people with colostomies have the option of irrigating. And I have a big booty, so I feel more comfortable sitting opposite the toilet on a folding chair when I irrigate. This is what an irrigator looks like. It's a bag attached to a long tube, which has a cone at the end. Okay, and this is filled with water and hung up high. The cone goes into the stoma through the bag called a sleeve. It goes through the sleeve. The sleeve goes down into the toilet, and this cone goes through the sleeve into your stoma like so. Anyway, and then it takes about 5 minutes for the water to go in, and then you wait, and all the stool goes whoosh right into the bag, into the toilet, and it takes about 30 to 45 minutes. So some people don't like that idea because they don't want to do that. The bag hangs on to you by a belt, like Steve just talked about, clipping into that sleeve, and it goes down into the toilet. That takes about 45 minutes, and then if there's more to come out, it usually comes out if I'm in the shower. Who cares? So I've been doing that for about 25 years because when I started out, I had a flush stoma. So the stoma was totally flat to the skin, so the stool was going under the pouch instead of in the pouch, and my skin was highly affected by it. So I was taught how to irrigate, and that has turned out to be just a good lifestyle for me. Sometimes I even skip a day. So I don't have stool that comes into a bag at all, but I use a soft cloth closed pouch that I thought I brought here, but I don't know where it is. And so I use a closed pouch with a filter. So I rarely have stool in my pouch, but if I do, it's because I've eaten something really weird and it's caused some sort of diarrhea or something. And then at the end, I have now got this thing called Perfect Zone Sprayer Kit. You can get it at Home Depot, and it costs about $40 or something like that. So this sprays and sits on the inside of your toilet, like along this part goes inside the lip of your toilet, and then this plugs in right here, and there's just sprays, and it's very easy to install. I didn't do it; I had a plumber do it, but it looked easy, and they're not that expensive. So if you want to get something to clean out your pouch, that's fantastic for that type of thing. I never used it till this last year. I can't believe I went so many years without it, but my other bathroom had a sink right next to it, but this bathroom, the sink is across from me, from the toilet. So that's why I like it. And then when I go on my camping trip or up to the cabin with the girlfriends, if we have to share a bathroom, I always remember M9, some sort of deodorizer for the room, which I think is good for anybody to bring along. Yeah, I think Josh mentioned Poopery. So anything like that is always good. So those are my tweaks and leaks and peaks. And then now, wasn't that good? Now we're going on to our next speaker. I'm so excited for you to meet her. Josh was great. Steve, thanks so much for sharing what you did too. And now we're moving on to Joy Hooper. Joy Hooper is a certified ostomy nurse from South Georgia. She has been certified in wound, ostomy, and continence care for over 20 years and has practiced in a variety of healthcare settings. Her passion for teaching ostomy management prompted her to create and later patent the first ostomy teaching tool designed especially for nurses, the anatomical apron. Joy opened a small ostomy clinic in 2008 where she provides education and collects ostomy supplies to reissue to those in need of products. In 2010, she launched the South Georgia Ostomy Support Group in Moultrie, Georgia, and began participating in annual trips to Capitol Hill to advocate for digestive diseases, improved access to diagnostic procedures, and to provide insight into ostomy management. Joy is a clinical instructor for national certification courses in wound care and ostomy care with Relias Wound Care and was voted the UOAA 2019 WOCN of the Year. I met this lovely lady a few years ago at the national conference, and I was just swept away with her. She's just totally adorable. Let's welcome Joy Hooper. Come on in. Hey, Joy. Good to see you. She's away teaching class, and she had to even come in from her class to do this Ostomy Academy for us in her hotel room. So bless you for taking the time to be with us tonight, Joy. Take it away.
Thank you very much for having me, Brenda. And like you said, I'm not at home on my regular internet. I am coming to you from the Derby Room in Louisville, Kentucky. And I did have a couple of times when I faded out when I was talking with Brenda and when I was watching Brenda, and also when Josh, really doing an awesome presentation. Yeah, but that kind of faded out too. So I want to tell you, if I fade out, hopefully it's going to come right back. But I'm hoping that's not going to happen. Because what I'm going to talk to you about today is first I'm going to explain the different kinds of ostomy surgeries to you. And then we're going to get into the leaks and the peaks and the tweaks that we've got. So without further ado, let's talk about the different ostomy surgeries. Okie dokie. So I'm first going to explain digestion. When you chew your food, it goes down your esophagus and into your stomach. Once it's in your stomach, it's going to be held and turned and slowly released to go through your small intestine. And as this chewed up food is making its way through your small intestine, well, this is where digestion is happening. This is where your food is going to be broken down. And it's broken down by some really, really caustic digestive enzymes. I mean, think about it. It's got to be breaking down steak and cabbage inside the GI tract. So this is a very, very caustic environment. But after that food moves to the small intestine, it's going to enter the large intestine. Now, the small intestine eats for us by putting vitamins and nutrients out of the food that we ate. Well, the large intestine drink for us. The large intestine is to drink for us by absorbing the liquid that was in the food that we ate and the liquid that we drank. So as that chewed up food is traveling around through our colon, making its way all the way down, then anus, it's getting thicker and thicker and thicker as the colon is absorbing that liquid. All right, so that's a basic little down and dirty on digestion. Let me explain the surgeries. With the colostomy, it is very, very simple. The surgeon is going to separate the GI tract. Now, it may be that you need to have the rectum completely removed, or they may just suture it shut and leave it in place. That's, of course, what they would do if this was a temporary procedure. But the surgeon's got to do something because we've got food going in here and we've got stool coming out right here. So what the surgeon does is creates the stoma. Now, how do they do that? On the outside of the body, they're going to make a small incision. Then they're going to take the open end of the intestine and they're going to put it through that small intestine, bring the intestine through, fold it over and down, and there you go. You have got yourself a stoma. Now, since this came off of the large intestine, well, this is going to have thicker output. And this was actually so low in my intestine. This is more of a like sigmoid section of my large intestine. My output would be very, very similar to where the way that the output was prior to me having surgery. All right, so that is a colostomy. Now, the next procedure that I would like to explain is an ileostomy.
Joy?
This was like Joy.
Yes. You are fading in and out too much, Joy. Joy?
I am so sorry.
I am so sorry too. I know that it's very disappointing. I don't know if you need to go to another room or what we could do differently, but I want everyone to know that you can see Joy's video of her going through this in detail at ostomy.org. It's very good. I'm so disappointed that it's fading in and out. We'll just go to some questions. If you have any questions for WOCN right now, let's see if we can tackle those with Joy here. And then also, if you have any questions for Josh or Steve and I, whatever you saw, throw those questions out. Steve, are you seeing any questions for us right now?
Joy, one of the questions that's come up is what I mentioned about the skin barrier is being allergic to the different adhesives. What do you recommend for how to handle that?
If you're allergic to the different adhesives, there's a couple of different things you can try. Number one, you might use a silicone type product on your skin barrier. That would be one option. And your spray, off. And there is a patch that is a Raya patch. Raya is an all-natural product, and that is pouched by Filter. So those would be some good options for somebody who has allergies and sensitivities.
Let's try this, Joy. Why don't you go out and try coming back in, and let's see if that helps us. Okay, start over, and we'll continue on with you. Are there any other questions, Steve? I just am getting to looking at the questions myself.
Actually, there are two other questions. A gentleman asked about belts, about how large they come.
Why did you answer that? You know all about belts.
Well, I was going to. Is the fact that there are different companies make different sizes. They are, for the most part, one size fits all. But I do know that Hollister seems to have an extra large. So that would, if you're really big, that would be the one place I would go. The other place I would go to is New Hope, who makes the Peristomal Hernia belt. They make one that is actually, you can cut to make whatever length you need. And I have one of those that is actually even way too big for me. So that is something that you can try there. Another gentleman asked about the silicone and said that they tried it and their appliance wouldn't stay. I would say probably you didn't give it enough chance to dry. I know from personal experience that the SensiCare from Combitech, dries extremely quick. That's one of the things I used to always talk and sell about it. But some of the others may take a little bit longer. Moisture is our enemy. So even if we're using a silicone barrier and we put it on our skin still wet, it is not going to allow you to stick. So make sure that you make sure that it sticks, or make sure it's dry before, and then hold him direct pressure after you've put your skin barrier on. I'm a big believer in that as well, holding it on for Jan up in University of Chicago always tells her patients to hold it for at least 10 minutes after they put their skin barrier on. I asked her once why she says 10 minutes, and she said because she hopes to get a minute or two. I'm a big believer, and I lay down and I hold pressure on mine for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I get a 5 to 6 day wear time with a short stoma and a pretty good sized peristomal hernia. So those are two tricks, another trick that I use. But those are two questions that we had along those lines. Here's one for you, Brenda. Can you irrigate with a peristomal hernia?
Yes, you can, because I have one right now. I've had a peristomal hernia for about 4 years. I don't know, maybe it's an advantage in some ways, but I haven't had too many problems. Maybe once every 3 or 4 months, there might be a slight like blockage, and then a couple of days later, it all comes out. So just carry some extra pouches with you at that time. Let's see if we can get Joy back in. Looks like she's trying, and everybody keep your fingers crossed that we can see Joy right now. Let's try it again, Joy. Are you there, Joy? Can you hear us? Not yet. Okay. So I hope that answers your question about peristomal hernia. Yes, you can irrigate, at least for now. I've had 2 other peristomal hernias, but it's been 20 years since I had one. And I was going into third world countries, so I had them operated on before I went out of the country. This one, I haven't been out of the countries because it's been COVID, so I've been hanging out for quite a while. Any other questions for us?
Here's a great question. Here's a great question, Brenda. Asking about do these suggestions apply to urostomies as well? Often these talks are about colostomies and ileostomies. That is an excellent question. And yes, for the most part, all of these things that we've talked about still apply to an ileostomy, or excuse me, to a urostomy, because you still have a stoma. We still have to try to maintain a seal. Obviously, with urine being so liquidy, it can be very difficult to maintain that seal. And also, unfortunately, urostomies, many times the stoma is very short, so it makes it even more difficult. So there's where a belt really can come into play. Also rings. I mean, there's also, ostomy paste, but I'm a bigger believer in rings. I didn't talk about this, but I am a huge believer in Econ rings. If it's leaking, use an Econ. I know that's corny as hell, but it is very, very true. So rings, a lot of times, Econs in particular, absorb that liquid. So yes, everything that we've talked about really still does apply to urostomies as well as colostomies and ileostomies.
Very good. What other questions do we have? More about the filter in the pouch. Yeah, I think people that have any wetness have a tendency to get the filter plugged up at some point. And there are things you can put over the filter to protect it from plugging up. So use those. If you irrigate like I do, you never have that problem. That's the only time that you can do that. What else do we have here? Use adhesive remover. Try the, let's see, different brands last differently for different people. No so question. We can't really say one is best for you, and we really can't, because I've tried them all, and I've been lucky with all of them. So I think I'm just lucky that way. But some people have found that they're allergic to certain things.
I think that's one of the things that UOA really promotes, is to try everything. And my members of my group have heard me say this more times than they care to. The way you change your appliance on day 1, the way you do it at 1 week, the way you do it at 1 month, the way you do it at 1 year is always going to change. And so just because you're using one particular appliance now doesn't mean that in a year from now or 5 years from now, you might find another one that works better. Plus, manufacturers are always coming out with new products. So that's one of the advantages of being in a support group, because most support groups, mine in particular, always has all 3 of the major manufacturers come in and talk about new products. That's one of the ways that you can keep up with them. Another way that you can keep up with new products is the Phoenix magazine. I'm a huge supporter and a huge believer in the Phoenix magazine. And then you can always go to the manufacturer's websites. It is a way of being able to see things as well. YouTube videos are another source. I caution about YouTube a little bit because there are some kind of wacky things out there, but there's also some very good stuff as long as you stay with the manufacturers. So major manufacturers. So those are all some ways to be able to find different products. And then you could always call each individual manufacturer. Very, very welcome to be able to do that. So you ought, I mean, sometimes it can be a challenge, but you ought to be able to find something that will work for you.
Great. And Natalie writes she's a double bagger and she definitely wears a belt and she really finds that the belt is great. I like that. And someone said, how does the silicone work? I tried it, but it didn't stay on? Question mark.
Right. That was one I was addressing, that maybe you need to make sure it dries.
Okay.
Because if it's wet if it's still wet when you go to put it on, and also that goes back to maybe that particular one won't work for you. That's where, again, sometimes you need to try, many different ones, and not just necessarily with skin barriers. But Brenda mentioned M9. For me, that doesn't really do much anything, but Safe and Simple makes a product that seems to work for me. So again, that's where, as an ostomet, you again always have to kind of be trying different things to find out what works for you. It's the same principle of drugs. Did we all took the same drug? It may not necessarily affect us the same. So same thing applies here.
Did you see Mrs. Harper's note about the Coloplast Convex? And she previously used belts, but just had a revision. So she doesn't think a belt will slip now. What size does she order? How does she know what to order?
I would call the manufacturer of whatever product you're using. I don't see that particular question, so I'm not quite remember which manufacturer it was, but whatever it is, call that manufacturer. Like I said, they're almost one size fits all to a degree in the fact that you can adjust them. I used the Coloplast and have not been able to use a belt previously. I would say call Coloplast and talk to one of their people in their customer service and ask them to send you a sample of a belt. If that one doesn't work for you, as long as you're not using the skin barrier that has the two prongs, if you're using just the one, then you can try a Hollister or try a Comatec, or again, New Hope, or some of the other ones that are out there.
Great. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions that you could answer, because you know more than me. Let's see here. Yeah. Everything we talk about at United Ostomy Association can be found at ostomy.org. And it's very exciting. And while we're waiting to see if Joy is going to come back on, let me just tell you about what's coming up for us. It's very exciting. We have our first UOAA virtual ostomy symposium coming up on August 13th from 10:30 to 5:30 p.m. It costs $35 to register. When you think about that, you're saving plane tickets and hotels. And we at the Minneapolis Ostomy Association, we always send people give money to send them. So if your group can send you to the virtual conference, Steve and I are going to be co-facilitating that along with Dawn Becker. We have lots of different kinds of things coming up. Great speakers, a chance for networking, and I hope we have a few laughs along the way. There's a comic that's going to open up. He's from England, and he is starting a movement called Stop the Stoma Stigma. And his name is Louis Green, and he will be joining us as the opening speaker. And at the end, we're going to have a great speaker. Her name is Megan Cherry. She's in the cover of the Phoenix magazine, either the last edition or the one before. And she's going to be our closing speaker. And in between, we have doctors and nurses and patients all talking about ostomies in such a positive manner and ways that we know that we can just live beautifully with an ostomy. Let's see. Anything else coming up that we should know about here, Steve? Oh, Michelle Boxer offers a suggestion too. She says, my filters always get blocked. I have been using the Osto Easy Vent. That's another good tip, because sometimes you put the Osto Easy Vent, you puncture the bag with it and it works. You can open it up and let the air out of your bag.
I once heard a semi-truck driver used to use that, took a piece of tubing and hooked it to the vent and stuck it out the window of his truck. So as he's driving down the road, he never had to worry about odor or his bag filling up with gas because it was direct lined outside.
Oh, that's great. And Chris Mullen has suggested spray adhesive remover works really well versus adhesive remover wipes. Just something to think about if folks want to try that too. This is great. Thank you for your tips while we're waiting to see if Joy can come back. I don't know if she's trying really hard. We might just have to have her by audio, but that's okay. Thank you all for letting us know that the sound was not well, and we apologize for that. We're trying to make sure she can come back on. And I think right now we'll just do the mental health moment with Molly right now. Let me tell you about Molly. Let's see. Molly Atwater Pulisic is the director of Young Ostomy Outreach for UOAA and chair of UOAA's Young Ostomy Outreach Committee. She underwent ileostomy surgery in June of 2017 after more than 20 years of struggling with chronic constipation, a symptom of a genetic collagen disorder. As a member of the board, she advocates for ostomates ages 18 to 50 at the national level, frequently speaks to support groups about ostomy challenges unique to patients in early adulthood, and helps to plan the young adult track of UOAA's national conference. Aside from her work with UOAA, she runs the social media account Molly Ali Ostomy, found on Instagram and Facebook. Using her platform, she teaches more than 20,000 followers about life with an ostomy and other chronic illnesses. Take it away, Molly.
Gladly. I'm so sorry that Joy's been having technical difficulties, so bear with me. I think mine should be fine, but I'm excited to get started a little bit early. So as Brenda said, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Molly Atwater Pulisic. I'm the director of Young Ostomy Outreach for UOAA, and I also run a social media account called Molly Ali Ostomy, where I talk a lot about my stoma, but I talk equally as much about mental health and the importance of juggling that alongside of chronic illnesses and dealing with ostomies. So in the theme of leaks, tweaks, and peaks, I was trying to think of what I wanted to talk about. And when I think about leaks, one thing that comes to mind is my worst leak experience ever. And so I thought that I would share that with you because in that experience, I learned a lot of tweaks mental health wise and thought I would give you a peek in that. So we're going to take it way back. Come with me to July of 2017. If you just heard, Brenda said I had surgery in June of 2017. So we are about 1 month post-surgery. I'm learning how to deal with my ostomy. My mom has been in the hospital with me the whole time. She's been a wonderful, wonderful caregiver, trying to learn as much about my ostomy alongside me as possible. So at this point, we are home from the hospital and we're 1 month out, and we decide, you know what, Mom, you can go back to work for one day. I think me and Dad have got it under control if something goes wrong. And of course, everything did go wrong. So I wake up, and part of one of my health conditions is if I stand up too quickly, I pass out. And I managed to stand up too quickly while trying to head to the restroom to empty my bag. So on my way to the restroom, I pass on out, hit my head, get a little bruise next to my eyes. And then once I come to, I realize that I've fainted, and two, realize that I have a massive, massive bag leak. So at that point, I was hurt, I was scared, I was frustrated that I wasn't able to keep my bag on. We've been having leakage issues for several days now, and so we were hoping that maybe this one would work, and it didn't. So at this point, Mom is not there. Dad comes to the rescue, and we decided that, you know what? Yes, I'm having a bag leak, but we need to put out the biggest fire first. The biggest fire was the fact that I had passed out, hit my head, and had low blood sugar. So instead of dealing with my leak, we headed downstairs for breakfast. However, if you know what a bag leak consists of, it was going to be a little bit messy. So at that point, my dad did some creative thinking and wrapped me in a bed pad to form a kind of adult diaper. And so I did share the image with Ed and Megan, who are sharing this presentation. Oh, there you go. Look how attractive that looks. wrapped it all wrapped up in a bed pad, threw a belt on it so that it would stay put. You could notice I got that little bruise under my eye. But I was, again, I was dealing with a leak, but I was also dealing with other things. And so in that moment, I realized that one of the things that I needed to do for my mental health and my physical health was put out the biggest fire first. And that is one of the things that I really strive to do with my mental health going forward and all my chronic illness stuff and my ostomy stuff. So if I have a bag leak in the middle of the night, do I need to change the sheets before I take care of my bag? Do I need to take care of my bag before I deal with laundry? I try to take inventory and see what would make me feel like I am in the most control of the situation. Sometimes that's changing my bag immediately. Sometimes it's not. Every situation is different. And so I really strive to fight that biggest fire first and then move on to the other ones. And then, I mean, looking at this picture, it's hard not to laugh. And it was pretty hard in the moment to laugh. But one of the things that this experience taught me was to take a moment, take a deep breath, and enjoy the humor of it. I mean, some of the things that happen to us as ostomates, you would never, ever believe. So just taking a minute to let it roll off, let it go, let it breathe. That is one of my biggest tweaks that I've come to learn as an ostomate, especially when dealing with leaks or other unexpected ostomy surprises. So if you take away two things from this presentation, I hope you remember to put out the biggest fire first, make yourself feel in control, and to have a sense of humor, take a minute to laugh, and all those leaks won't seem quite as disastrous. Sometimes they are disasters, but they won't be quite as disastrous. And before I head off and give it back to Brenda and Steve, I'm going to do a plug for the Mid-Atlantic Ostomy Conference that is also happening virtually. That is happening this Saturday. It starts at 9 and ends at 2. If you've enjoyed the Ostomy Academy and tonight's presentations, you're going to love what they have to offer on Saturday. They are doing some keynote speakers. There's some breakout sessions with WOC nurses. So if you are having those questions that I've been seeing in the comments about leaks and products and accessories and all that important stuff that you'd love to have a WOC perspective on, that's where you want to go. And there's also going to be breakout sections on each of the main ostomy types. So a session on ileostomies, a session on colostomies, and a session on urostomies. So if you find that to be in your interest, I'm going to go ahead and share that link with the comments, or I'll give it to Ed so that he can share it. But I hope we'll see you there. And with that, I'm going to give it on back to Brenda and Steve to wrap it up, because I don't think we're going to be able to see Joy, but that just means we're going to have to do round 2 because she's that amazing.
That is great. Thank you, Molly. You always have great mental health moments. It's so wonderful to see you. And Steve, this is just perfect for this subject tonight, leaks, tweaks, and peaks, because we've had a leak. We've had a technology leak tonight, and we've been tweaking it as we go along. And the peaks that you all got to see us going through this together. And that's really what it's all about. We take it one day at a time, and we just fix it as we go along. And I loved what Josh said in his talk too. We participate in life. We participate. Tomorrow's a new day. So we have some problems today. That's okay. We'll get through it. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. There have been several people that have asked, when are we going to rebroadcast this? And it actually will be up very quickly after we're done. Just go to ostomy.org, which is the website of UOAA, with a / of events and Ostomy Academy. And you will be able to go right to it to be able to rehear some of the things that we've talked about. Maybe I talked too fast, so maybe you didn't understand some of the things I said. But I couldn't agree with you more, Brenda. I mean, tonight just kind of is epitomized of living with an ostomy. It's going to leak at the Murphy's Law. It's going to leak at the worst possible time. We pray that it doesn't, and we learn to live with it.
And have a sense of humor.
I mentioned to Josh about how bouncing around in the toilet on an airplane. I very early on tried to change my appliance on an airplane, which was almost impossible because of all the bouncing around. So, but it is a funny story that I do talk about that kind of thing. But the thing I always try to remember, because I've had leak in some very unfriendly times you wouldn't want to have done, it's just a biological fluid. And so basically, you know, take a shower, you can wash your clothes and make the best of it and that kind of thing. So it's not the end of the world to have a leak, and hopefully it doesn't happen all the time. There's another question here about having a flush stoma in small convex and having all kinds of problems. I think that's one where you need to talk to a local WOCN or do a telehealth. You know, that's something that, I mean, not too many good things happened in the pandemic as far as I'm concerned, but telehealth was something that really came to school or came to being because of the pandemic. And so even if you're in a bad location, to be able to find somebody, again, I keep talking about Comitech, but that's what I know. There's a telehealth program that they offer that you can get, and in some cases free of charge. So there's a lot of things that we can handle over the phone, but sometimes we need medical professionals. And I am certainly not a medical professional. I just say I came from the school of hard knocks. So, you know, I kind of learned by trial and error. So.
Well, then you got a good chance for that tonight. I thought maybe we'll end with a story, since we've been talking so much about leaks and planes. From my book, I'd Like to Buy a Bowel, Please. This is a story I got many years ago at one of the first national conferences I went to. And it's called the Mile High Club. And it was a guy who gave me this. He'd been married for 66 years. And they had a family of 30, retired and spend their time taking care of each other. Gil had a urostomy and due to cancer. And he sent this story, or he gave the story to me. He was from Fenton, Missouri, shared his version of the Mile High Club. Some of you might know what that is referring to. We were on an airplane heading for Vancouver when all of a sudden my pants were wet. I grabbed my good old tape and headed for the restroom to try to repair my appliance. We were having some turbulent weather. I simply could not fix it. I opened the door and told the flight attendant my problem. I asked, "Would you please ask my wife to come back here?" What a time we had. The plane was jumping around and they were both in the bathroom. You know how tiny those restrooms are on the plane, and neither of us are small people. She sat on the toilet seat and I was hanging on to the wash basin. After about 20 minutes, we got the job done. My wife asked, "What should we say when we leave here?" I said, "Nothing, just smile." So there you go. The humor always pays off in all these things. If we can laugh at it, we can live with it, as the great Irma Bombeck said. If we can laugh at it, we can live with it. And I loved what Josh said, and Joy wanted to leave us with a message that she said, keep going forward. And we're going to go forward with Joy at another Ostomy Academy soon. So Joy, don't worry. Thank you so much for showing up and trying to be here. Technology, sometimes it has a little ding to it here and there, but that's okay. We got all these great people watching, and we thank you all for your contributions tonight. I thank you, Steve Van Devender, as he's going to take over as the MC going forward. And thank you to 11 Health for the great job you do helping us with UOAA offering Ostomy Academy. Particularly want to thank Ed Fuller from the staff and Megan from the staff of 11 Health, who really helped run everything. And so we thank you all. Thanks our participants. And it's been nice knowing you this year. Take care, everybody. You'll see me again. Don't worry. Bye,
yes, you will. I promise you will see her again.
Oh, good. Wonderful. I'll talk about humor sometime. Great. Bye, everybody.